Good morning, my name is David Ridgway and this is Kirklees Local Television's Weekly Wind-Up, where we bring you a digest of the weekly news. We aim to be informative, amusing, interesting and provocative. On my panel today we have Donovan Brown, a well-known poet and Manchester United fan, Liam Clark, an apprentice who wants to work one day as an electrician with Kirklees Council, and Paul Salverson, a well-known expert in public transport. And indeed, if the public transport people listened to what Paul has to say, we wouldn't have the public transport problems that we have today. Welcome to you all. But we always want feedback from you. The Weekly Wind-Up can always be contacted at info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, and you can search on Twitter at Weekly Wind-Up. The topics we're covering today are the proposals for a West Yorkshire Transport Plan, apprenticeships, which is why Liam's here, is this a real step towards a permanent career, and David Moyes, remember him? Has the coverage of his departure from Manchester United been over the top? Our first topic is, or should be, of interest to every resident in West Yorkshire. I don't believe that public transport is a political issue. Rather, it is a facility which should be growing and providing a service for the travelling public. So, Paul, I come to you. Old friend you might be, previous panellist you might be, we won't go there again. On the basis that we can't discuss the proposal for West Yorkshire that are being worked up behind closed doors, perhaps we should discuss the proposals that we would like to see. Do you think that we will ever persuade the car driver to abandon the car in favour of the bus?
I think there's a chance of doing it, providing we offer a good quality alternative. I think just appealing to people's better nature, saying, well, it's green to use public transport, sadly won't wash. I think public transport has got to be reliable, convenient and affordable to everybody. It's not as bad as some people make out at the moment, but there's certainly scope for it being a lot better. And so we need good quality buses, we need good quality trains that run when people need them, not finishing at 11 o'clock at night.
11? You can get a bus at 11?
If you're lucky.
I guess that's right.
You can get them all night in London, but that's simple.
Oh, well, you see, when you mention London, London is a very interesting case. In London, they would say they are a special case because it's London. I don't pay any tribute to that sort of comment. But how many providers are there in London?
Well, there are several providers, but there's one specifier, so it all looks as though it's one system. And so London is different because you've not got the free-for-all that we have everywhere else outside London. So you can't run a bus whenever you want it, which is basically what you can do outside London. It's got to be determined by Transport for London, you've got to use their fares, you've got to run to the times they're specifying, it's got to link in with all other forms of transport, the tube, the railways and other bus services. So that's the sort of thing that we could really do with up here.
Ah, right. So if it works in London, the question is, has the privatisation of public transport delivered a truly competitive market? Has the public benefited outside London? It certainly has in London, but has it benefited outside? Yeah,
but you've not got a competitive market in London. You compete for the franchise to run the services, but once they've been allocated, basically you've got a much more coordinated system. So I think the answer to both questions is probably no. That on the one hand, pure competition never exists anyway, and trying to inject it into public transport is particularly difficult, whether it's on the railways or whether it's on the buses. And what was the other question you asked?
Has the public benefited?
I would
outside
say
London?
No, really. I think you've got some good operators. We've got some good operators in Kirklees. We've got some great people working in the bus industry.
By good operators, I presume you're meaning bus providers rather than,
bus
quote,
providers. Yeah, people who run the buses. A lot of people, bus people who are really committed to their industry, and they feel the frustration as well, just as a lot of railway people do. But they can't say, they can't come on a show like this and say that deregulation has been a complete disaster, or that rail privatisation is rubbish. Yeah, but they won't have a job after they've finished, unfortunately.
You have to get someone who's retired, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right, I should widen this out. Liam, do you use the buses?
I don't know, I've got my own car.
Apprentice, and he's got his own car. I mean, there's a message, isn't there?
Yeah. But what would tempt you to use a bus?
Well, I don't think it's what would tempt me. I think what puts me off more than anything. I don't think buses are very reliable, and I think they're quite expensive in terms of getting about, because I mean I don't find that a small car is quite a lot of money costs quite a lot of money to run anyway. So
do you find parking a pain? The cost of?
Well, I don't work in a city centre, so parking out of the city is not that difficult anyway.
Without wanting to be too silly about this, whereabouts do you live?
I live in Schools, near Cleckheaton.
Oh right,
So it's
okay.
within
And where are you doing your apprenticeships?
It's South Kirklees, so all around Huddersfield.
So you've actually got to get from Scholes to Huddersfield to do, well, I know from speaking to friends who live at Scholes, Cleckheaton, that coming across here by bus from Cleckheaton is a nightmare.
Yeah, it is.
Therefore, I don't blame you for getting a car. But then, this will all be, presumably, all be washed away with the rollout of the new transport plan.
Well, let's hope so. I think we an element of cynicism creeping into your voice there, David.
Really?
I think the area around Cleckheaton and Heckmondwike really suffers from the lack of a good public transport system, it has to be said. Back in 1900, the London and North Western Railway had this great idea to build a new railway between Huddersfield and Leeds because the existing railway was clogged up and congested. It was called the Leeds New Line, and it was closed in the 1960s when traffic had declined. It served Cleckheaton, Heckmondwike, Liversedge, as well as providing extra capacity, the big thing about HS2, so we're told, which improved things between Leeds and Manchester generally. Now that traffic on the railways has increased, we really need something like a Leeds New Line version 2 to meet all those capacity problems that we've got on the Dewsbury
Could we put
line,
that on the roads?
which would benefit, Liam, in terms of getting into Huddersfield.
Yeah, but could we put that on the roads? In other words, for bus services?
I think it's quite difficult. Maybe a fast service linking the Spen Valley with Huddersfield and Leeds is something, okay, that the bus operators would say, well, you've sort of got that already. But it's not very attractive.
Do you, Liam? No.
If somebody asked me to get to a meeting in Cleckheaton from where I live in Slowett, I'd struggle a bit, really.
Sorry, was that Slathwaite?
Slathwaite, yeah, that's a wind-up. That's wind-up number one. One to Paul Salverson. Dr. Salverson. But I must say, I would drive, so I can totally sympathise with what Liam's saying in terms of making a difficult journey. Public transport, as it is at the moment, doesn't offer that attractive option. You take the easy option.
Donovan,
hello.
You're making notes.
Yes, I'm just.
What do you think about this?
About the public transport?
Buses.
Buses, it's a while since I've been on a bus, to be fair. I think the last time I travelled on a bus, it was like 16p from Fartown
That's
to
the
town.
1950s.
This is quite some time ago.
This is before you even were born.
Well, I was travelling the buses kind of before I was born. But, I think public transport's always important, and I think I'm with Liam. I'm a car driver myself. It does give me my independency, and I think sometimes the public transport can be a bit scary. You get on public transport, again, it might be due to the public. It's not as friendly as it used to be.
Do you get down to London at all?
I do occasionally.
I presume when you're in London, you don't drive from A to B when you're down there. You go by public transport.
No.
You drive?
I drive most of the places I need to get to, unless it's.
Well, how do you cover the congestion charge?
Well, if I'm going into the city centre, I have to pay a congestion charge, but if I'm not, you scoot around where you need to go.
That's very interesting, because I find that most people who travel to London quite happily travel down to London in their cars, and then they hop onto the tube or the buses, and they just find that quite normal. But the people coming out of London come out of London on public transport, and then they hire a car, which is a bit bizarre. Or they travel by taxi, which is even worse.
I find it bizarre that people would drive down to London anyway in the mass. I think, you know, it's such a good train service now. The HS2, East Coast and Grand Central provide an excellent service really from Kirklees to London, far quicker than what you do.
Which bit of Kirklees do you go to London from?
Well, if I was doing it, I won't use the S word. For if I was driving from Slathwaite,
Yes.
I would drive to Brighouse, leave the car there where it's free car parking.
Oh, you use the
and get
Brighouse
Grand
London
Central.
line?
I do. Yeah, the Brighouse Flyer. It's a great
Which works very well.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you the question about all the speed cameras on the road from Huddersfield to Wakefield, which is a bit of a downer when you're in a rush to get to the
It costs
train.
you more to park in Wakefield than it does to get the train.
Well, I suppose well, yes, it does. It does. But thank you very much indeed for that. Very interesting discussion. We'll take a break there. You can add to this debate, and we would like you to add to this debate by contacting the Weekly Wind-Up on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or by searching on Twitter @Weekly Wind-Up. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. The government has made much about its apprenticeship programmes. In the olden days, an apprentice would pay his employer for the privilege of learning the skills of that particular trade in the hope that he would then have a trade for life. That was an indenture. Those days are long gone. But how can we provide employment for those people who are not academically capable of attending university or actually don't want to go, like I didn't? Do we place too much score by a university degree, Liam?
Well, I came into my apprenticeship quite late on actually. I'm 23 years old and I'm currently in my first year. I think my experience of being at school was that the idea of getting your qualifications when you left school it was to go to college, get A levels, and then go on to university to get a degree. Obviously, times have changed in the last 5 years or so, where tuition fees have gone up quite a considerable amount. I think it's about £9,000 a year at the moment. I don't believe that a degree for me was the best option. I don't think that there was enough information given regarding apprenticeships at the time. Obviously now I've picked it up later on and I've got a really good apprenticeship with the council. But I just wish that while I were at school, I wish that there was more information that was given out to school.
I don't think there was any there, or certainly I don't think there was as much there then. If you're 23, you're talking back to what, 8 years?
7 or 8 years, yeah.
I don't think the information was there then, as compared to today.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the problem I think with apprenticeships. I think they are available for people who leave school, but I don't think that the information is given to them.
Do you think society, this big, unbelievably difficult to define word, places a different attitude towards a guy who does an apprenticeship to a guy who goes into a university, who gets a university degree? And does it matter?
I'm not sure about that, but I don't think that it does matter. I mean, I think personally an apprenticeship is better than a degree. I mean, you're getting a really good qualification. You've got many opportunities when you've qualified, such as you can start a business, you can become self-employed if it's a building trade, which mine is. You don't have the burden of having to pay off student loans, student tuition fees. Based on some of my experiences through friends who have actually gained a university degree, some of them have been out of work for 2-3 years after qualifying. So,
or they do work which that the press would class as menial, like stacking shelves in supermarkets.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
I wouldn't actually class stacking shelves in supermarkets as menial because I've done that. It was actually quite interesting in a way, on Monday anyway. It was a bit dull on Tuesday. I left on Wednesday. So it was quite easy to get work in those days. Now tell me, Donovan, did you used to be an apprentice?
Apprentice, not in a trade, but life skills. I've been an apprentice.
Right.
In terms of life skills.
Okay.
In my apprenticeship.
Should we discuss your life skills in some depth?
Apprenticeships, life skills, all in the same box.
Paul, if I can come to you and say, put the question again, is this a satisfactory way forward to help people into secure employment?
I think it's a good way forward, and I think, let's not be too curmudgeonly about it. 90 apprentices from Kirklees is probably 90 more than quite a lot of larger employers in this area are providing. So I think it's good that local authorities are taking the lead in many cases, and Kirklees being one of them. You're a member of the authority, David, so I think you should be proud
I'd say
of... oh, so is that political?
No, that's purdah.
I can be political, though, because I'm not a politician anymore.
Fine.
So, yeah, I think it's an excellent way forward, and I think the point that Liam made, that university isn't for everybody, and I can say that as a visiting professor at Huddersfield University, and I'm sure Bob Cryan, the Vice-Chancellor, would be the first person to say, well, yeah, it isn't for everybody. There are some people who would benefit much more from doing an apprenticeship, and the key thing is having good quality jobs that people like Liam are able to step into. Yeah. I think one of the other things to say about apprenticeships is that in the past, places like Huddersfield, which had a great engineering industry, it's still there, but not as big. Most of the firms had apprenticeships, but often it was, quite exclusive. Girls wouldn't get much of a look in. And whereas these days, a lot of the apprentices that you see in local authorities as well as big firms, there's a good gender mix of people from all backgrounds. And so that's something to be celebrated.
I think that's quite right. Right, we'll move straight on then to you, Donovan. And I'm told that you are a Manchester United fan.
Yes.
Is this a Manchester United shirt?
Yes.
What does AON mean?
Well, for me it means all or nothing.
What does it really mean?
It's the name of an insurance group. To be fair, do you know what it means?
I haven't got a clue. That's why I was asking you.
Well, all or nothing. It's an insurance company.
And you come from Huddersfield?
That's correct. I sort of
What's wrong with Huddersfield Town?
Well, I noted when I saw that sort of privy to that question, I wondered if there was a bit of a sort of a time bomb attached to it. No. I always get asked this question, and
I'm from Sheffield and I'm a Manchester United fan.
But what people don't actually understand is that Manchester United was actually created by Yorkshire, biggest county, and Lancashire Railway,
So Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway.
Yorkshire and Lancashire Railway.
Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway.
We're not going to get into this. We'll keep it from the point of view that alphabetically it's Lancashire and Yorkshire, but I do understand what you mean.
Yes.
I mean, it comes from the dark side,
So the Yorkshire folk have a right to
indeed, they do. Do you know, I didn't know that. I did not know that, so I've learnt something new today.
Thank you very much.
Now, what do you think of an old manager, a retiring manager, anointing a new one as a chosen successor? Is that a good way forward?
It can be. It could be. Generally,
where's it happened before, successfully?
Royalty.
I beg your pardon?
Royalty?
No, we're talking about football clubs. And royalty, so it's a rather different system.
Well, I mean, if you passed on, if you've been given a job as a successor, I'm just trying to think which club's actually done that and it's been successful. I'm just having a quick...
Well, I can't think of one.
North Korea?
It was...
that's grossly political.
It was kind of unprecedented what he did actually, because it wasn't actually... it's probably the first time we've ever heard of a manager suggesting the next manager.
No, that's happened before. Matt Busby did it.
Manchester United.
McGuinness.
Yes, Manchester
and
United.
that was Manchester United. It didn't work then, and it hasn't worked now.
Yes.
So have we set a precedence here?
Yeah, I think it's the United way. I think you've got to do that. You've got to have a bit of failure to progress.
It is a bit Old Testament, though,
yes.
isn't it? Right.
Well, it is Old Trafford. I mean...
Old Trafford. Right. Has David Moyes been given sufficient time to make his mark?
Personally, no. I personally would have given him till at least December.
This year?
December this year, yeah, December of this year.
And then sack it?
Well, we'll see where we're going, but you have to give people a chance. I mean, I'm for the people, me, so I like to give people chances and, you know.
Yeah.
I'd give him, I don't think he's had enough time, personally, even though progression seems slow.
Was he the right man at the time?
For me personally, yes.
Okay.
If the great man says you're next in line, I have to go with the great man who's going to question Alex.
It's interesting that he, well, one now does have to question Alex, but nevertheless, I mean, David left what was in football management as secure a job as you could get.
Most definitely.
And all that's now turned to dust. His team's finished better with another manager than the one he took over, which has got apparently some money. But what I really want to centre on here is, has the media hype been overly excessive? I mean, the day that David Moyes left, and I'm not quite sure how he got told about his resignation, whether it was by Facebook, Twitter, or the decent thing by being told face to face. I really don't know. But it was the top story on the national news for 2 days.
Well, I think
it should be.
Yes, I think.
Why?
Well, it's the national game, second to, you know, politics.
Well, when Arsene Wenger leaves Arsenal, will he get 2 days worth of top story?
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
Only possibly.
Possibly. Possibly. I can't say Arsenal and Arsenal are as big as United, but I'm sure when Arsene departs one way or the other, there'll be discussions. What's
really fascinating is that in the Daily Telegraph today, which just goes to show that they follow the Weekly Wind-Up very closely, and they knew we were going to talk about this today, there's a full-page article on the back of the Sport supplement by Sarah Crompton, and she is basically asking the question: Is the departure of David Moyes more or less important than the potential resignation and retirement of Nicholas Hittner? I think Hoper's pronounced it right. Now, who's Nicholas Hittner?
Good question.
Yeah, well, I did look it up myself, and I did find it, and I can't. Yes, he is. Here we are. The retirement. Imagine if the retirement of Sir Nicholas Hittner as director of the National Theatre, a pretty significant moment for culture in this country, had not been just an item in the news, but led it. Now, if the director of the National Theatre resigned, would you expect that to hit the top of the news for 2 days? I mean, this is culture. Culture touches more people than Manchester United. It's Manchester United culture.
Does it touch more people than football?
Yeah, because it's much wider. You see, football is narrowed down to football.
And what is culture?
Everything.
You could say
everything
football is part of culture, really.
Oh, right, I suppose.
But I think one of the big problems in all this debate is that, you know, this so-called beautiful game has actually become quite ugly and totally corrupted by money. It's not about you know, good sportsmanship or sportspersonship anymore. It's about these absurd sort of salaries that footballers are on, and I've got a lot of, you know, I'm the world's least interested person in football. I used to go and watch Bolton Wanderers when I was a kid.
Well, I can tell why you are then.
Because you could spot the trains going past at Burnden Park, but we're not even there now. But I think, you know, there is this alternative sort of people's Manchester United, isn't there? Are you not interested in supporting that?
Well, the green and yellow lot.
What are they called?
Manchester FA?
Manchester FC.
Yeah,
Manchester FC, yeah.
I want to ask you, Liam, are you a United fan, interested in football?
I'm not really a football fan, no, but I have been following the David Moyes story.
And do you think he's been given a bit of a, as they say in Australia, a bit of a raw prawn?
I think that when Alex Ferguson left and David Moyes took over, I think from that moment, I think he's had a lot of attention from the media and from Manchester United's huge fan base. Well, so I think it has been a big issue, the fact that he's only lasted.
Big thing is then, will Ryan Giggs actually come like a saviour?
I hope so. I think he's worked really hard for Manchester United.
Would it be good if he gets 4 games and then be put back as assistant manager?
I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I don't know.
Can I make a very political point?
No,
Do you not think that
Yeah,
the
go on.
fans of, you know, Manchester United, Huddersfield Town, wherever, they should actually elect the manager? Like, you know, we elect politicians. Are we saying that, you know, we shouldn't
Do you know,
do
I
that?
always like talking to you, Paul, because you're always so exceptionally radical and you say things which I want to say, which I know I can't say. But nevertheless, I think that personally, I think that Mr. Moyes and his departure was given far too much hype and coverage in the media. But I can understand why it happens, because the media has to sell its newspapers, and it was selling newspapers. Ooh, I've lost my script. Well, thank you very much indeed for coming along today, Paul, and telling us about the transport plan. I hope that you like my little idea. Thank you very much. Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much for coming on, Liam, and really giving Kirklees' apprenticeship scheme a 5-star rating. It's really, really good to hear that. And Donovan, I really wish you'd written a poem about David Moyes and his departure, but maybe the next time you come onto the weekly wind-up, you'll be able to do that for us.
I have to be inspired first.
So thank you all for coming along today. This has been a really interesting discussion, and we hope you will add your comments. You can contact us by email on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, and you can search on Twitter at Weekly Wind-Up. Thank you. See you next week.